Hey everyone, this is Jeremy Thomas, your Apex Auto Advocate. Thank you for tuning into my channel and for joining me today. Second bike, the Ducati xDiavel. I rode that really for a couple of years. I had that bike from 2019 October all the way to, I want to say, March or April of 2023. Yeah, and I want to say a little over 7,000 miles in that time. So the bike at that point, when I traded that one in, was over 9,000 miles at the time, and I traded that in for a 2023 Harley Davidson Lowrider ST. The first new bike that I've ever purchased, and probably the last new bike that I'll ever purchase. Knock on wood. And I'll tell you the reasons why for that in a little bit. But the Lowrider ST, after the Fat Bob, was probably the first bike that really got my attention when it came out. Harley brought out the Lowrider ST in 2022 as a response to what folks out west in California and places were doing to the Softails. And they were going with the club style kind of, bike. They were putting a fairing on it, they were putting some smaller bags, and kind of making baby baggers out of them, while still being lighter in weight and but still nimble around town and stuff like that. So it's a very versatile bike, and so I loved the way that Lowrider ST looked, and so that was a bike that kind of piqued my attention back in 2022, but I kind of wanted to wait a year. Still loved my xDiavel, loved the performance on that. I enjoyed riding it, but what started to happen for me was I wanted to do a little bit more longer rides, and the xDiavel is pretty much a naked cruiser, and by naked I mean it didn't have a fairing, no real wind protection on it. So the way that rider triangle was, it was bearable for a couple of hours, but not really for like an all-day type of ride. I wanted to be able to have some two-up riding, have my wife, like I was married at the time now at this point, wanted to be able to have a comfortable bike for her to ride on back once in a while, be able to do more of a day trip on it, have some bags to be able to put things into and be able to work from places and do different things like that, and get some more wind protection for longer trips. And so I test rode the Lowrider ST, really fell in love with it. I got a black. It was black with the bronze rims and wheels and bronze accents on it. It was a really cool bike. I really liked it. And that bike was expensive. I mean, Harleys are not cheap, especially brand new. And they did give me really good trade-in value for my xDiavel, actually $2,000 more than what the Blue Book value of or NADA value was at the time. But I definitely spent more than I would have liked to on the back end, right, on the total out the door. So yeah, that was probably not one of my proudest moments. If I could go back again, I would have probably waited it out and got that bike used and private or from a dealer. But I was able to at least get a brand new bike that I could make my own and get good trade-in value and not have to deal with having to sell my bike privately. So pros and cons here nor there, right? No regrets at the end of the day, but just I want others to learn from my mistakes, others to learn from my experiences as well, and just to be open and authentic. I really believe in transparency. I really do believe in being open and honest about stuff and wanting to help people. So that's really where I'm coming from on that. I saw that they had a really, because my xDiavel was really built out, they gave me some good value towards getting some aftermarket parts put on and including labor from the dealership when I was getting the bike on that day. So I did get a Two Brothers exhaust that they had me listen to that really did sound good. So they got me a Two Brothers stainless pipe. They put it on there. I got a tall, clear windshield put on that bike, which I ended up swapping out for a Clockworks. It said that it was going to be light smoke, but that light smoke was pretty much clear and it was tall, and I didn't like the way it looked. I took it home with it on there, but something that I ended up swapping out later on. Had them just pull the bars back a little bit just to get a more comfortable rider triangle. I'm trying to think what else did I get done on that bike. I added the engine guard, which I got. The great thing about Harley is their aftermarket support, and this being a softail chassis bike, it shares parts with other bikes, especially the Lowrider S, right? Which the Lowrider ST was a derivation or a build-off of the Lowrider S. So I was able to find some parts on Facebook Marketplace used and save some money on that side. So like the mustache engine guard, able to find stuff like that. Like I got bunking rear guards for the saddlebags, but also serve as passenger pegs for my wife or whoever was two up. So things like that. I got a sissy bar and backrest, and upgraded the seat. I think I ended up getting a really cool deal on Facebook Marketplace for the Sundowner seat from Harley, which is a thicker, not the most best looking seat, but a really nice, comfortable seat. I think I got that for $100 from somebody in Greater Charlotte area. So definitely try to leverage where I could. I also had the dealership put LED lights into the turn signals and the backlight, which it's sad that Harleys don't come with LED lights from the factory in today's day and age. I mean, we're talking about 2023, right? So that was something else that I had also had done. So it all added up at the end of the day, but it was a cool bike. It was a great bike. Really enjoyed it. I had that bike from beginning of 2023 to beginning of 2025. I had that bike exactly for 2 years. And loved the bike. I mean, the pipe was great. Good performance. There was no ride modes on that bike, that 2023 Lowrider ST. I enjoyed it. I added, Memphis shade hand guards to it to get hand protection from wind and things. I added a bunch of things to that, right? Foam mount and things like that. Quad lock. What else did I add to that bike? Yeah, a little bag and the fairing, stuff like that. So little things like that that made it much more pleasant and usable, which I enjoyed. But what some of my gripes with that bike: suspension, right? Yeah, so especially with two-up riding, it wasn't the best bike for two-up riding. I think we bottomed out hitting a pothole once going into uptown Charlotte for a date night. It wasn't a big enough bike to be comfortable for two-up riding all the time, or here and there as I wanted to. The other thing was wind protection and how stable it felt on the highway, especially with crosswinds. So the Lowrider ST was my first frame-mounted fairing bike that I ever got. I believe that bike the Lowrider ST is about 700 pounds. The xDiavel was about under 500 pounds, right? So with that kind of power, 156 horsepower and 500 pounds, I mean, that bike was a bullet. It was insane how fast that bike was. And so it was also good to slow down, especially after having a kid and wanting, and the other reason I got the Harley compared to the Ducati was that Ducati engine was derived from a high output, high RPM, more sportier engine, right? So that bike did not like low RPMs. That bike was lethargic under 2,500 RPMs, and I always felt like I was going to stall it out. So it wasn't really great around town. It wanted to be up in the RPMs and wanted to be wrung out, excuse me. And so it wasn't like the best all-around bike, but it was a great performance bike and a fun bike that I really did enjoy, and I loved my time with it and the miles that I put on it. The Harley was the opposite, right? So I kind of went from one extreme to the other. This one, it was great. It will definitely putt around town and like the lower RPMs and stuff like that, but it wasn't that great when you were wearing it out. Definitely had limits, and it wasn't the best when it came to just enjoying that when you were ripping it around. I mean, mind you, the low end torque was great off the line. It was fun. It was loud. It was great. I also had gotten the speakers on there. I forgot about that. I had the Bluetooth speakers that were like a plug and play for the Lowrider ST in the fairing from Rockford Fosgate, and man, for 2 speakers, I think it was like 250 watts. It was plenty loud and crisp and clear. So that was a cool other addition that I had to that Lowrider ST. So I definitely built that bike up really well. And I was trying to make it into the touring bike, but like then I would have to. The other thing was the ergonomics was tighter than I wanted it to be, especially with the legs, because it's mid controls, not forwards, right? And in order to get some lean angle, they put those pegs up a bit higher. So it was somewhere in between being a mid control and a forward control bike in terms of the controls. So I felt a bit cramped on that, especially longer rides and stuff. I had to use the mustache crash guard and I put my legs up at times and things like that to really be comfortable and stretch out. And then the wind protection piece was like, especially with crosswinds, I was fighting to keep that bike up. And then going, around tractor trailers and 18-wheelers, it just didn't feel as sturdy and planted to me as I wanted it to be. So those were things that really just, I wasn't happy about with the bike. Hold on, I'm just gonna get over here to the right. So yeah, those were like the big things. And so I started thinking about looking at baggers, and I love the new Harley baggers that were coming out. I was looking at Indian. I was going to demo days, trying out different bikes, and really, was kind of figuring out, hey, I could manage this. I mean, we're talking about now, I'd worked my way up, right? So went from 500 pounds on the xDiavel to about 700 pounds on the Lowrider ST. And that bike, performance-wise, just before I forget, I think it was about 120 pound-foot of torque on that Lowrider ST and about 100 horsepower. So yeah, again, a heavier bike, right? So kind of evened out, but also not as fast as the xDiavel was. And so got used to handling 700 pounds with that, I think 720 pounds and that kind of power output. So then started looking at baggers, and I was like, I spent a lot of money on this Lowrider ST, brand new, and now coming up on 2 years later, right, it took a depreciation hit, going back to my my argument / recommendation for people and encouragement to people to find used bikes, because now 2 years in and at about 4,600 miles on the bike, I mean, that it tanked in value. It tanked in value because, again, newer versions of that bike had been out at that point. Now they had ride modes on those newer ones and certain things like that, right, where bikes don't, this bike didn't hold its value well, in my opinion, right? So I didn't want to have to now spend even more money out of pocket to get into a bagger. But I am also a fan of modern technology. I personally just am not as much of a fan of older bikes. I like screens, I like traction control and lean angle ABS and six-axis IMU, all that kind of stuff that I've grown to love and have, right? So definitely didn't want something too old, but I also wanted a good engine. I wanted something fun and keep the performance bagger. We're in the performance bagger craze, right? So those were some of the things that I was keeping in mind when I was looking for the next bike. But I definitely wanted a touring chassis with a backrest, something comfortable for my wife to ride on back on when we want to do 2-up riding. Wanted nice substantial bags. I wanted good performance. You know, even though we're talking about higher weights here, good performance. And ability to multi-day and day-long trips and highways and crush miles. Those were some of the things that I was looking for in the next bike. And so I started looking around. I mean, my favorite place to look for used things is Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace isn't as good for cars, I would say, because there's just a lot of garbage out there, false ads, scams, stuff like that when it comes to cars. But for motorcycles, I've Craigslist for my first bike, dealership for my second bike, dealership for my third bike. Now for my fourth bike, I was looking for a good deal after having bought a brand new bike and never wanting to buy a brand new bike ever again. And so I stumbled upon this 2020 Indian Challenger Dark Horse. Had never ridden an Indian before this. Had gone to a couple of Harley demo days, but I never got a chance to go to an Indian one because the local Indian dealership didn't believe in having weekend demo days. They wanted to use those times for sales, and so they saw that as something that would prevent more sales, where I think that's very old school thinking. You want people to try out bikes, get used to it, and really fall in love with a bike, and that's going to make them want to buy it. And then the Concord dealership that's further away from us, it's just hard to get to. I can't really go out there on a weekend all the time and things like that. So I never really got to go to an Indian demo day before I found this bike. It was about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. It was, again, 2020. It was matte black. I love the way the matte black looks. Probably won't get another matte colored bike again, just because of maintenance and scratches and upkeep, right? I'll get to that later, but essentially I think it had 5,400 miles on it. I mean, that's so low for a 2020. I mean, it was 5 years old, right? I was looking at it in 2025, early 2025, and they had it priced at $20,000, which was reasonable. Looking at the value of my bike, it was around that price, maybe a little less. So I messaged the guy and reached out and said, hey, I really, really like this bike. And I asked him, why are you selling? I like to get to know why people are selling things and get a context and backstory on those kinds of things. He had another bagger, and he had a Road Glide, and he had put a lot of money into that. And this was one that a friend of his sold to him. So technically he was the second owner of this bike. So I'm the third owner of this bike. And so I was upfront and honest, right? I said, hey, I really would love to check this bike out, and I'm looking for a bagger, and this really fits a lot of what I'm looking for and the price point. But I have a bike that I need to sell. I have a 2023 Lowrider ST. And I was like, hey, do you happen to know anybody interested in a bike like this, which would make this a lot, easier for me? He actually responded back and said, hey, I have a good buddy that is interested and has been looking at these bikes. And so I was like, hey, it would be great for all three of us to meet up, test ride each other's bikes. And we both had titles for our bikes, right? So there was no payoff and no loans involved or banks involved. So we made a decision, and I said, hey, let's meet up at the local Indian dealership in Lowell at the time. I connected with my mechanic buddy and a couple of friends of mine just to have counsel. It's always good to make decisions with good counsel. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I kind of ran this by people. I looked up the NADA value, the NADA value on my bike, as well as the bike that was being sold. And I think, I pretty much, saw that I was just almost even, but I think I was coming out on top with if the Challenger checked out and was as good as it looked on paper. Again, I had done a lot of work on my bike too, right? So he was getting a great bike with a lot of additional accessories on it. That again is the sunk cost when you look at trade value and book value, but something that someone would highly value if they have the same taste. So we met up that next coming weekend. And yeah, I fell in love with this thing. Oh my God, she was in great condition. Even my friends that I brought with me said the same. We kind of swapped bikes and did a group ride around the Gastonia area near the Lowell dealership. And yeah, I was in love. It was so nimble. This bike, compared to the Road Glides, I'm sorry, Harley, but the Challenger is so much better than the Road Glide in my opinion. The Road Glide feels like a boat, even the new one. I'm diehard Street Glide fan now when it comes to the latest generation of baggers from Harley. I really do love the Street Glide too, but yeah, the Challenger. I mean, this thing is about 820 pounds, about 100 pounds heavier than the Lowrider ST at about, I think it's about 815, 820, if I had to guess. But when this thing is moving, it is so nimble, and that has to do with the aluminum chassis, right? The Indians, it's a, you know, I'm a big fan of two wheels, right? I'm gonna step on my soapbox for a second here. There are guys that are diehard Harley guys. There are guys that are diehard Indian guys. I've owned both. I'm a fan of two wheels. I think competition is good, like I said earlier. And King of the Baggers is one of the best things to have happened to baggers because we have now performance parts and performance baggers and ways to customize and things to look forward to and crazy technology being passed down, which are awesome, you know? So we only just do well when it comes to those things, you know? So that's why for me it's like I like Harley and I like Indian, right? They all do different things. They're different interpretations of things, right? The Road Glide is air cooled. It's you know, air and oil cooled. It's not liquid cooled, right? It's what else? They're rubber mounted. The engines are rubber mounted to the chassis, right? They're not made as one because that keeps the iconic rumble and shaking and feel that Harley has become nostalgic and known for. So that is an interpretation. That is a take on a bagger. While Indian, on the other hand, is a little bit more performance oriented out of the box. I will admit that. I believe that, and others will say the same, right? This is an aluminum chassis. The engine is built to be one with the chassis. It's built into it. It's like seamlessly one thing, and they work together. This is a liquid-cooled Power Plus motor with a 108 cubic inch. So, you know, they're not as big as the 117s out there on the baggers for Harley, right? You have the 117 cubic inch, you have the 121 on the CVOs, the VBT, and you have the 121 high output on the CVO ST models. Again, they have now liquid cooled heads on those bikes now, right? So, but this is purely liquid cooled. This bike wants to be revved out. This bike, for those coming off sport bikes or more peppier, higher revving engines, the Indian bikes with the Power Plus motor feels more at home for many people, right? So I've had both, right? I had the xDiavel and I had the Lowrider ST, so I've been in both worlds. So to me, the Challenger is a great in-between when it comes to the nature of the motor, to say that. This one wants to live up there. I mean, this bike now, and I'll get to all the stuff that I've done to it, / what it had. This bike had a lot of really nice upgrades to it that the previous owner made. It has the Stage 1 dual pipe system that from Indian. This had mid-rise bars, which I like compared to the stock bars that are pretty low and down and not as ergonomically where I'd want it to be. This has... What else does this bike have? This bike has PSR levers, which are adjustable levers, right? So your brake and your clutch, which are really nice and pricey too. It had the backrest and the sissy bar and a luggage rack. So these are all things that I really liked and would have added myself. The pipe, I may have gone with something else, but the pipe sounds good. It gives you a little bit more performance. It's, you know, Indian issued factory. Created in the factory, so I wasn't against it. But the overall package has been great, and so yeah, we did the deal right there in the Indian Lowell dealership. Had one of the employees, sales guys, was a notary that I called up in advance to know that if there was a notary at the dealership, pretty much notarize it for us, which is really nice of them. So I appreciate that customer service from the Indian dealership. But yeah, so I we made the trade. Took my quad lock, put it onto the new bike, and took all the stuff out of my saddlebag, and yeah, he drove off back to. So his buddy pretty much took my bike, and he made the title out to him. And there, I was like, you guys could work out how to pay each other, but for me, it was a straight up swap, and I just had to swap titles, and I got the title to this and under my name, and I got this bike. So I've had this bike now for a little over a year. I came with 5,400 miles. Now I'm at 9,800 miles. So I've been loving it, been enjoying it, and have did Daytona on this bike. I did a Merle's Inlet trip, which we have coming up again this month, and so I've really enjoyed this bike and hope to hold on to this bike for a long time. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys appreciated this vlog. Appreciate you all, and really, again, if you can comment, like, and subscribe, share what kind of content you like to see on this channel. I'm all about vlogs, riding reviews of cars and bikes, buying tips, maintenance tips, things like that. I really want to build this channel out, and Apex Auto Advocate goes well beyond just car buying. I help with motorcycle buying as well, helping people find the right model that works for them, all kinds of stuff. So again, comment, like, and subscribe. Visit apexautoadvocate.com. And it's all about the ride. It's not about the destination. Enjoy the ride with amazing machines and amazing people. So take care, everyone. Until the next time.